We start tonight tracking the devastating fires in LA. At least 24 people have died and more than a dozen others are still missing tonight. It comes as multiple fires driven by severe drought conditions and high winds continue burning across the LA area. And now firefighters are racing to gain the upper hand before the high winds start again.
Right now, a red flag warning is expected to last until Wednesday. ABC's Melissa Adon's in the fire zone in Altadena.
This evening, President Biden meeting with officials on the federal response to the Los Angeles wildfires.
I'm continuing to direct the federal government to do everything possible, everything it possibly can to help California.
This as crews continue to work around the clock to stop the spread as new red flag and high wind warnings are in place for much of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour now in the forecast for Tuesday and Wednesday.
The anticipated winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County critical.
Those high winds also impacting the use of aircraft like air tankers and helicopters with water dropping systems.
Usually the limiting factor is gusts over 30 miles an hour. But the sustained winds, anything over 40, is pretty much going to ground most aircrafts.
The Palisades fire has now scorched over 23,000 acres and destroyed nearly 5,000 structures. The Eaton fire in Altadena and Pasadena believed to have destroyed more than 7,000 structures and burned over 14,000 acres. Even after the destruction, some residents are thankful to see their homes intact after returning to their neighborhood.
After 40 years, you got a lot of stuff you forget about that would disappear if the house burned down. So we're thankful that it didn't.
Officials have not yet determined causes of any of the fires.
LA officials from the mayor to the fire chief say they are better prepared for this current round of Santa Ana winds, saying that they have the sufficient resources and they have aid from local firefighters, nearby states, even other countries. And most of all, they have already pre-positioned strike teams. Melissa Adon, ABC News, Altadena, California.
Amid the wildfires, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced today Oscar nominations are being pushed back a week. They're now scheduled for January 23rd.
The ABC 10 Weather Impact Team is tracking those dangerous conditions tonight. Monica, what are firefighters facing?
Well, those high winds, that's exactly what we're going to be tracking. And as you heard there, it's just very difficult to get the aircraft up if a fire were to start when they're dealing with wind gusts over 70 miles per hour. Northeast winds pick up overnight tonight through tomorrow, with the impacts being potential power outages and fast moving fires. We're once again heading into that red flag warning, a particularly dangerous situation. So not just the red flag warning, it's elevated because of the extreme fire behavior if a spark were to start, fueled by those gusty winds at 70 miles per hour. So you can see the red flag warning extending all the way along the coast here north of Santa Barbara, beginning tomorrow morning, lasting through Wednesday early in the evening. Here's the setup. That high pressure ridge still overhead, dry conditions, but that low moving just off to the east of us. Those offshore winds, well, we had them for today. Tomorrow, they translate their way southward. Today, we had peak wind gusts close to about 30 to almost 40 miles per hour throughout the valley. We saw that as well throughout portions of the foothills and lower Sierra. Current winds, they've backed off. We're basically looking at calm winds, and what that means for us, a very chilly night. Patchy frost early tomorrow with lows dropping into the 30s up and down the valley, as well as the foothills, teens for the Sierra. That's going to top our weather impact headlines. Patchy frost tomorrow morning, near average highs, but that fire danger in Southern California. We'll talk more about that in just a moment.
Sounds good, Monica. Thank you. Tonight, a land use expert is speaking out about the difficult reality when it comes to those wildfires in SoCal.
A professor at UCLA says the situation was at least 100 years in the making, and the issues leading up to it are man-made. ABC 10's Roxanne Elias has the details.
A professor at UCLA is calling the wildfires in LA a biblical catastrophe.
Well, it's with a very heavy heart that I say that this was inevitable at some point, right? What we're experiencing is the impacts of what's been predicted in terms of climate change.
Dr. Stephanie Pincel teaches at the UCLA Institute of the Environment and is the director of the California Center for Sustainable Communities. She specializes in land use and the interaction between urban development and wildfire risks. And while she was shocked by the fires, she says she wasn't surprised.
We in California have encroached increasingly into highly flammable areas. And with more people in those highly flammable areas, the likelihood of these things happening increases.
The professor says vegetation is different in Sacramento, and the Santa Ana winds made the situation in LA worse. But that doesn't mean other communities in the state are immune to these types of wildfires.
We have in Southern California and California, we're still allowing developments in places where there's a lot of evidence things will burn, and the developer will say, oh, well, we're going to put a fire station in there. Go, okay, fine. Then what, right?
She says there's a lot of pressure for elected officials to allow land development because of the outcry for the need of more housing. And she believes these fires can't be prevented unless people completely change their behavior. The professor says that's highly unlikely, and all Californians should be ready to evacuate their homes at a moment's notice.
But don't expect to be saved under conditions like this. You will get resources, you will get help, but there's no way you're gonna be saved by the firefighters unless you're really lucky.
In Sacramento, Roxanne Elias, ABC 10.
The professor says she believes California's government is pulling all the stops to help people affected by the fires. And instead of finger pointing, she says people should be rethinking how they live. And for continued coverage of the wildfires, head over to the ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. We have live updates and our in-depth reports into California's home insurance market. Download the free ABC 10 Plus app wherever you stream.